Welcome Whovians and bookworms alike. Today we're trying out something a little different here on the channel. We're going to do a book review of a Doctor Who novel. And this is a rather unusual corner of the Whoniverse, as writer Steve Lyons takes the Doctor and his companions on an adventure into the Crooked World. So buckle up, because this isn't your average Doctor Who story. Let's take a look. Now imagine, if you will, the TARDIS materialising in a world that seems oddly animated. That's right, the Doctor and his companions have landed smack dab in the middle of what appears to be a cartoon universe. But before you start picturing the Time Lord taking a jolly romp through Toontown, let me warn you, this story takes a turn that would make even the Daleks raise an eyebrow, if they had any. At first glance, the Crooked World seems like a strange childhood dream come true. We've got parodies of familiar faces from Hanna-Barbera and Looney Tunes cartoons living out their best lives. There's Streaky Bacon, a jovial farmer with a fondness for blunderbusses, and Angel Falls, a racing driver whose guardian occasionally dons a mask and cape to spice things up as a villain, of which she is completely blissfully unaware of. Oh, and let's not forget poor old Jasper the cat, whose biggest concern is avoiding a certain pesky mouse that tends to plug poor Jasper's tail into an electrical main socket. But as any good Whovian knows, the Doctor's arrival tends to shake things up, and oh boy, does he ever. Our Time Lord and his companions inadvertently introduce something radical to this wacky world: free will. And with it comes a tsunami of existential questions for the residents of this cartoon world. Now, you might be thinking, cartoon characters dealing with existential dread? That sounds about as much fun as a Dalek tea party. But trust me, it works. The book strikes a delicate balance between humour and gravity, with moments of hilarity interspersed with surprisingly touching character development, and even quite a shocking amount of violence at times. This story features the 8th Doctor, originally portrayed by Paul McGann in the television movie. Ironically, despite this particular incarnation of the Time Lord being referred to as the George Lazenby of Doctor Who, it is the 8th Doctor that has featured the most predominantly within these original novels, and also within the audio plays, and even in the Doctor Who magazine's comic strip, to the point where McGann's incarnation of the character has actually ended up with a vaster array of stories across different media than any of his forebears. And when McGann returned to the role on television for the mini-episode The Night of the Doctor, he showed that he hadn't lost a step, and he actually referred to many of his companions from these other stories, essentially making them canon. To this day, fans still want to see a series of television episodes featuring the 8th Doctor, even if it's only a short one. This version of the Doctor is in fine form in this story, perfectly characterised as he navigates through this bizarre situation. And whilst I wasn't too familiar with his companions, Fitz and Angie, I'm assuming that the Doctor met them in an earlier novel, their plots are engaging and add depth to the story. A fair warning though, Fitz's attempt to woo a cartoon woman led to some anatomically challenging situations. Without spoiling too much, let's just say that by the end of the book, you'll have witnessed cartoon characters grappling with morality, the definitely not Scooby-Doo gang finding themselves on a quest that's more philosophical than paranormal, and Jasper the cat undergoing more character development than some companions get in a whole season, despite not speaking a single word. Now, is it perfect? Well, if you're looking for a traditional Doctor Who plot with a clear-cut villain and a world-ending threat, then you might be disappointed. The Crooked World is more of a collection of intertwining subplots exploring this strange new reality, but in my humble opinion, that's what makes it so fascinating. So, would I recommend The Crooked World? Absolutely. It's a prime example of the wild creativity that the Doctor Who novels offered, especially during the wilderness years, when there was no Doctor Who on the television, and these novels and the Big Finish audio plays and the comic strips were the only new Doctor Who stories we had. It's funny, it's thought-provoking, and it's utterly bonkers in the best possible way. Just don't expect to look at an episode of Tom and Jerry or Wacky Races or Scooby-Doo in quite the same way ever again. It's also the type of Doctor Who story that will very unlikely become an episode of the TV show. The BBC simply would not have the budget to do an episode of Doctor Who that essentially is like the film Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Disney could probably have the cash to do it, but then they'd probably get their army of lawyers nervous over an impending lawsuit coming over from Warner Brothers, of which many of the cartoon characters here are an obvious parody of. So, go ahead and find out this book. It is a twisted, funny, and at times surprisingly violent Doctor Who tale from the wilderness years. But just remember, in the words of a certain Time Lord, we're all stories in the end. Just make it a good one, eh? Well, Steve Lyons certainly did that with The Crooked World. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to ponder the existential implications of Roadrunner's continued survival. Allons-y! Thanks for watching this video. If you have enjoyed this, then please do take the time to leave a like and a comment. Again, this is something a little bit different that I'm trying to do here on the channel. Would you like to see me doing more book reviews? Do let me know, and also please consider sharing this video across your social media, in particular with anything that's related to Doctor Who and classic science fiction in general. I thought that I'd put out a shorter video this week whilst I'm still working on some of my longer reviews. I have my review of the current Doctor Who season finale coming up shortly, as well as the next part of mine and Luke's extensive retrospective on the Avengers television series, so do keep an eye out for those. In fact, if you haven't done so already, why not subscribe to the channel and activate that notification bell in order to stay updated on new uploads. But for now, thank you very much for stopping by the Big Daddy D Reviews channel, and we will catch you again next time.